Hello and welcome to this month's first draft. I am Alexis Ann and I am here with Mary Chris Escobar, and hopefully in a few minutes Julia Kelly will be popping in and joining us as well. This month we are talking about surviving book launches, not just having them, but actually surviving them. We feel like it's something that maybe not a lot of us talk about because it's such a painful topic, so we're going to broach it tonight and talk about all the fun and all the dirty that goes along with it. So hi, I'm Alexis Ann. I write contemporary and erotic romance, and you can find me at alexisannbooks.com. And tonight I'm drinking out of this really pretty glass. It is a little bit of whiskey and a splash of lime. And I'll let Mary Chris introduce herself now.
Hi, I'm Mary Chris Escobar. I write women's fiction, and I am also drinking out of a pretty glass since I posted about pretty glasses. So you do these things and then you're like, oh, right, I have to find a pretty glass somewhere in my house. So I found a pretty champagne glass, which is not probably the typical serving for a gimlet, but I've got a Jen gimlet here and it's delicious and I'm going to enjoy it. So cheers.
Cheers. All right, so I'm right in the middle of two book launches. Last Tuesday, I launched a whole new brand, a new name book. It's actually sitting behind me right now, D909. And next Tuesday, I'm launching the next book in my D series, Burns. So I'm right in the middle of the subject we're talking about. And I have lots of swear words that I would explain how I feel right now because I'm just so overwhelmed. And lots of alcohol,
I think that's the thing. Like we were talking right before the show went on and how we were sort of excited to do this because we feel like there's a lot of celebration that goes on around a book launch correctly. And we can get into the reasons why it is correct to celebrate this accomplishment. But I do think sometimes there's a hesitation to maybe, as people are congratulating you and excited for your big success, which again, we don't want to lose, it is a big success. There's this hesitation to talk about, yes, this thing I did is amazing, but it's really hard during the launch. And so, yeah, I think you touched on it a little bit, but can you talk about kind of what some of the feelings that go on, just like some words that go with that, including the swear words?
F-bomb, F-bomb, F-bomb. No. Well, I mean, you spent a whole chunk of your life pouring yourself into your work. And not only, it's not like you go to the office and you do your work and then you come home and your wife or your husband gets to hear about your day and your boss knows about your day. Hey, Julia.
Hey.
But the whole world, if they choose to, gets to see what you just spent the last 3 months or 6 months, a year, 5 years of your life doing. And they get to read it and say all kinds of things about it. They could say lovely things. They could say horrible things. It's very exposing experience. And the entire process of writing is very overwhelming and emotional. And then the marketing, and then you put it out there, and then the judgment. It is an emotional journey that kind of leaves you reeling in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you think some of that comes from the fact that like the act of writing is sort of a private act, and then you have to flip a switch and suddenly it's very public? Like
it's very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like,
yeah.
You're writing and it's all to yourself. I mean, maybe your critique partner sees some of it. Maybe your writing group hears what you're working on. But other than that, it's you and the page. And then you're just supposed to flip the switch and you're supposed to be extra extroverted and you're out there and you're talking about your book. And yes, you want to buy my book, because marketing is the exact opposite of introverting and writing a book. So it makes you feel a little bit like you have two different personalities. And sometimes you kind of step back and go, wait, am I doing the right thing right now? Because I feel like I just turned on a different side of my personality and I don't know who I am. Which is, I think, why we come up with that saying from RWA, my life is a lie.
Right, yeah. Sometimes the external life is. Hi, Julia.
Welcome to the show, Julia. I do not hear Julia, actually.
I think we don't have audio on you.
No, we don't have any audio from Miss Julia.
Nope. All right, I think she's going to try to try to reboot.
Sounds good. Yeah, and I don't, oh, she's gone already. That's why I don't have her in the control room. Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully she'll be back with us.
Yes.
But that's a good, yeah, exactly. That's a good segue into, you know, what are some of the things that you can plan and plan and plan for and can go wrong during a book launch or not as you expected?
Well, the worst thing, I think I can hear Julia now. I hear lots of noise.
Yeah.
Oh, you sound like you're really far away, though.
Sorry, guys. See if that makes it any better.
Oh, you're all better.
Except now we got
Have to struggle with
mute.
technology.
What would blah, 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 blah. What did you just ask?
Well, I was segueing from audio problems to say that what are some of the things that you can plan and plan and plan and plan for that might go wrong, or you just can't predict them when you're launching a book?
The absolute worst thing is that the book doesn't go live when it's supposed to go live for whatever unforeseen reason. A pre-order F-up, editing malfunction, a computer crashing and losing your file that somehow didn't get backed up. Oh, dear God, the non-backed up file dreams. Those are the worst nightmares ever. That would be the worst. I mean, that would be the absolute worst thing, because then you're launching a book and you don't have the book to launch.
Right. Yeah. Definitely. I think kind of on a lesser, like, obviously you're right. That's like you've built all these people up, you've done your launch work, and then it's like not appearing when it's supposed to. But I think for me too, the idea that, you know, you put in sort of the pre-work and the building the audience, and then you put this thing out, and even if you feel like your expectations are realistic, like I certainly don't release a book into the world at this point in my career and think it's going to hit bestseller lists the day it releases, but I will be really honest, I have put books out in the world and like 10, 12 people have bought them, and you know, like you kind of feel like you had a different number than that in your head, even if you thought your number was realistic. So I think that can be tough.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Another thing is the realizing that it's the biggest thing going on in your life at the moment, but it may not be in other people's lives, and it probably shouldn't be in other people's lives because it's not their book. But understanding that, you know, sometimes reviewers get backlogged, people get sick, things happen. You know, sometimes things that you were counting on and structures that you had in place don't necessarily work the way you think that they're going to work because things happen and you just don't know. So if you're kind of really heavily relying on other people, that can be really tough. And I think there is some realistic expectations that need to be set sometimes about, you know, will you get 15 reviewers all releasing reviews and, you know, talking about your book at the same time? Probably not, even if 15 reviewers have told you that they're going to do it. And it may be, you know, completely well-intentioned on their part, and it may be that they just, you know, again, things got busy. But I think having some contingencies in place can be really helpful, but ultimately it's a little bit of a roll of the dice, right? You never, I mean, a whole book launch is like that. You never really know what's going to happen because, as you said, you know, it's this very introverted thing that you then launch into the world, and you're just like, I really hope people like it because we'll just see.
Definitely. And hope people find it. I mean, you can do things and do things and do things, and it, it's
tough.
It is. Definitely.
Yeah. D909's launch was a huge disappointment for me because I really thought that I had all this excitement and I'd done all the right things and I would sell at least 20 copies. And I did not. So you have to deal with that expectation and then the reality and pick yourself up and move on. With a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, but I think it's important to talk about that because I think I remember the day that I launched, I think it was like one of my novellas, which I decided don't really sell for me anyway, so they're great free giveaways, but I think I put it out in the world and yeah, I mean, it was just kind of like crickets out there. And I mean, again, I did not have expectations that it was going to sell 100,000 copies at all. But it is, you kind of, there's this need, correctly, I think, to stay in your online persona, or when you're talking to maybe people you don't know really well, there's this need to stay positive about it because you do want to I mean, it is a huge accomplishment. But I think it is important to talk about. There can be this moment during a book launch of, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And, you know, I'm smiling on the outside and, you know, thanking everyone who bought it, all 5 of them, because genuinely, because like, thank you. But on the inside, I'm crying a little bit because I was hoping there'd be 15 of you. So.
Well, especially when you've just spent 6 months of your life working on this thing, and this is it, and 5 people bought the book.
Right. Definitely. And that's when I get into the point of reminding myself, how many people want to write books that have never written books? How many people aren't publishing what they write? You know, there's definitely some counter talk that you can do, but it's a process.
Yes. Oh, so yes, book launches. They can be a huge disappointment, but they can also be unexpected too, with all the different things that can pop up at the last second. People who, all of a sudden, you get a whole rush of people who want ARCs, and then you get that last like, should I send all these people ARCs? Are they going to pirate my book? And there's all of those questions that come along with book launches on, are you hurting yourself? Are you helping yourself? What are the right things to do? And you get really caught up in the cycle of one little misstep might be your downfall, which is not true. But you get stuck in the loop.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it can be a time when you're like analyzing every question from 1,000 different angles. Can definitely be tough. How do you make those decisions about like where to send things and like where to draw the, or do you, I mean, I'm at a point where if you ask, I'm probably going to send it to you. Like,
I pull out all my hair, and then I cry into a bowl of tears, and then I ask my crystal ball. No. No, at this stage in the game, I usually say yes unless somebody triggers
right.
Woohoo, this is a bad situation kind of thing. Stranger danger. Stranger danger with people asking for ARCs. I love the formula that I picked up at a session last year, which is you're going to get a 10% return on anything. So if you want 10 reviews, you need to send out 100 copies kind of situation. Because you're only going to get a 10% return on things. And so I try to keep that in mind. If I've only given out 5 ARCs, I might not get any reviews. So if people are generous and asking to help, to share news, to read, to review, to whatever, especially at the stage in the game where I'm not a New York Times bestseller with legions of anxious fans, the answer is almost always going to be yes, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's some quick things you can do, like with quick Google searches or you know, editors and editors, and you know, there's some quick things you can do if you get one of those bad feelings, and usually your gut is right. But yeah, I would say I'm definitely also at the stage where if you are asking, I'm probably going to appreciate the help.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you weigh visibility. So if what you're aiming for at this stage is visibility, and if you sit there and you think to yourself, okay, if there's a 1 in 10 chance that this person is going to help me gain visibility by getting reviews, which is really what the big game is, especially in really across the board of publishing, but especially in indie publishing, to kind of help give you that signal boost and all those things. I think that you sit there and you say to yourself, all right, if I think that it's worth it to potentially get this review and get this review legitimately through a person saying that they have, an honest review in exchange for an ARC, I think it's something you should definitely weigh and consider. And like you said, with some Google searches and some asking around with author friends, it can be helpful. And often your author friends can connect you. And I know we at various points in time have shared information about, different reviewers and different paid advertising sites and kind of the obvious ones, Book Club, but the not so obvious ones too, and kind of what your experiences are. So I think asking a lot of questions of people whose judgment you trust, people who've kind of been through some of the experiences you've been through, or maybe have gone through some of them and had some negative and positive experiences, can be really helpful because it puts things in perspective a little bit, but it also you're pooling information and you're pooling, your kind of collective anecdotal data, which I realize that anecdotal data is kind of an oxymoron, but it really does help. having somebody to bounce ideas off of, and a group of people to kind of go in with when it comes to approaching these things. And if anything, it means you're not alone, which is really nice too.
So have you guys ever done anything extra special to help you with the book launch? I just this week did my first big special thing because I've never done that before.
I'm super curious now about what your big special thing was.
The rest of it.
So I think you have to share that. I mean, I have one I can share.
We had a party!
Yay!
Yeah, we had a big party at the house on Friday night to launch D909 and just hang out and talk books and audiobooks and the author life with our friends and our writer friends in the area. So we just had fun. But it's the first time I've ever done anything like that.
That's super exciting.
Yeah, I did have a book launch party thrown for me by somebody else, which is classic because I don't really enjoy throwing myself parties. I like throwing parties. I don't like throwing them for myself. And there was a book launch party for 1 week in Wyoming. And there were books there and the whole thing. So that was a lot of fun, and that was definitely, in a way, it's nice to just kind of cap off. You've done this work and you've put this book out, and oh my God, there's going to be alcohol and hopefully chips and guacamole and something like that to really kind of celebrate a little bit. So it's a celebration, and it's also letting people who you have a connection with and who are probably likely to buy your book to know that this book is out and it's something that you're proud of and it's something that you would like help spreading the word about. So it can be both kind of the fun and also a little bit more on the I don't know if business side is quite what I would call it, but a little bit more professional.
Yeah, definitely. I've done something similar. I did a book launch for How to Be Alive, and I threw a party in the way I throw parties, which is I told a bunch of people I was going to go to a brewery, and
I like the way you throw parties.
Yeah, so I just kind of set a time and send an invitation to people, and I did have copies of my book, and it was great. We had a nice little group around the table sort of chatting about writing and the process, and yeah, it was good. And then during the launch of the relaunch of the paperback for Neverending Beginnings, I did something kind of similar, but it was a little probably slightly more organized. I contacted a market in my neighborhood, and there's a woman who does wine tastings on Saturdays, and over the summer, I partnered with her because she was a little nervous about how her wine tastings on Saturday afternoons would go with people traveling, and I had sort of launched this paperback in the summer, and I was like, I don't know if I should do a formal launch because of travel schedules and vacation. And so we sort of teamed up, and I did a book signing during her wine tasting, which ended up being a lot of folks that I knew, which felt really good that I brought people in to do her wine tasting. So it felt a little bit like a party, but it also felt like something really nice to do for my neighborhood. And I think from that idea, that concept of not loving to throw myself a party and be the total center of attention the whole time, it was nice that there was something else going on. And she did some really great stuff. She picked a wine called Fiction, and so she kind of tied it into the book theme. So that was a lot of fun.
You can also do Facebook parties. I mean, it doesn't have to be physical in place stuff either. If you have readers or you're looking to gain readers, that's definitely a possibility as well. And not just your own Facebook parties, but I've seen and I've been a part of there's one called the Historical, I believe it's called Historical ROM Blog Hop, and it's great. It's it's run by an author who is very active and has great social media presence and has a lot of great people around her, and she's very generous and it's very low key, and it gets a lot of people talking about historical romance, which is always really exciting to see. And it kind of centers around I believe it's still a once monthly Facebook sort of round robin sort of blog hop. So you link to the next person, and readers can literally go around. So it's not the traditional Facebook party where you're there for a dedicated amount of time and authors are doing giveaways and stuff like that. This is authors are doing giveaways throughout the course of an entire day through a round robin, and it's great. It's great exposure. It's great to get yourself in front of people who wouldn't necessarily maybe have access to your books just because they just don't know about you and don't know about your books. And so it can kind of pull in a new group of readers, which is really a lot of the struggle is you can gain this group of readers and it's fantastic and they buy your books and all that, but you also want to be reaching out to other people and you want to be reaching out to people you don't have a personal connection with and kind of say, here are my books, this is what's going on. So I think there's a lot of power in several authors bringing their readers together and exposing them all to each other's work as well. So these kind of, I'm seeing more and more of these kind of collective groups. And you do see them with things like, obviously, box sets. There are some massive box sets of 12, 24, whatever people. So that's one way to gain exposure also, but specifically with a book launch, I think I've seen a lot of that kind of collective social media effort. And then some collectives. I know one group of people who went in together to buy sort of shares in a NetGalley thing. So it's NetGalley can be incredibly expensive to get into and difficult, but they pulled together and they were able to get their books up on NetGalley and get some attention for them for some advanced reader copies. And so people were able to go in and select those books, and if you're approved as a reader, it can be helpful for dissemination for bloggers and things like that. And again, it's another pool of people that's actively looking for books and that you maybe haven't been exposed to yet. So I'm a big believer in authors helping authors out. I feel like I've been slacking a little bit on that myself recently because I just haven't been on Facebook and Twitter much because I've been writing a lot. But I feel like that's the theme of the winter for everybody. Everybody I know has been kind of doing their own thing. So everybody comes together at some point, usually in the spring and summer when conference season ramps up. But yes, very much in favor of kind of the collective author thing.
And looking to, if you're in any organizations, that can be a good thing for that. As you were saying that, I remembered I have done a book launch with Women's Fiction Writers Association. They do a quarterly launch, so anybody who is a member who had a book come out in the last quarter can participate in a Facebook party. So yeah, definitely that. And that can feel fun because, if your book came out kind of towards the first of the quarter, it's a great way to sort of celebrate again with people in your organization, at a little bit later. So. But definitely that collective idea. So folks, and I think that works especially well if people are in the same genre, or you should have some good crossover readers. They should be willing to take a chance on somebody new.
Do you guys have any rituals for launch day, for pampering yourself or surviving it or anything like that?
I usually go to work, which I know sounds like really lame, but I usually end up having to go into work. So my ritual is going to work. I don't know,
Yep.
which in a way is really helpful. Somebody else talk.
Well, I think I may know where you're going with that, which I see other people sort of, talking online sometimes about launch day and sort of watching numbers and watching, what's going on with launch. And I do I also go to work on launch days, which I have thought maybe I should take a day and celebrate this thing I did. But I tend to launch when I'm really busy at my other job. So, so I do think maybe in some ways that's helpful that I'm not sitting there watching the numbers climb or not climb, or I'm checking in kind of at strategic points to see how the launch is going, but I can't be kind of into the minutia of it because I'm somewhere else. So
yeah, you definitely don't want to sit down and obsess over I sold a copy, refresh.
exactly.
Yeah, that's tough.
You will go nuts.
Yeah. Now, is there a better way to celebrate than going to another job, perhaps? Perhaps I could distract myself with getting a manicure or a massage or something like that.
I do know my mother is a strong believer in having a bottle of champagne ready to go at all times. And so I like, if it's the start of a series, I do like celebrating with a glass of champagne or two. And again, book launch parties are a nice way to do it too, but on a smaller scale, just kind of treating yourself to something indulgent, because you've worked an incredibly hard amount, and especially in publishing and especially in the genres that we write, I think there's the constant push to do more and more and more, and it can be really tough. You can get into this kind of echo chamber of feeling like you're never doing enough, and so you write a book and you immediately have to think about the next 3 books that you're writing, and taking a moment and breathing and, I don't know, take a bubble bath or something do something, because they are moments to celebrate, and they are moments where you do want to sit back and say, you know, I actually did really achieve something. And no matter how this book launch goes, and you know, the book launch is just the beginning, right? The book launch is just the moment when the book goes live, and then the book can stay up for as long as your copyright is, you know, available, for as long as the technology is available, all of these things. So, you know, it really just, I think, it's the celebration of the start of something, and trying to keep that in perspective, and keeping in perspective that as you build a backlist, you increase your chances of visibility. You increase your chances of somebody being able to find you and like you and go through. And I can tell you, looking, I mean, it's a serial, so it's a little different, but looking at the serial that I wrote, and then seeing that follow through, and seeing people still buying books 4 and books 5, that's a really exciting thing, because that tells you that it stuck with somebody, and they really, you know, wanted to get through this book, and they wanted to do these things. So I think, you know, having a moment and sitting down and breathing, even if it's a half a day or a day, and just reminding yourself that yes, you have 4 more books to write, or whatever it is, but it's worth celebrating the book that you just wrote now, I think is a really helpful, healthy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
I do sushi. That's my thing. I always have to have sushi when I do a new book. Sake helps too, but it's got to be sushi. So. And then I try to get a massage someday during the week after a book launch, just to relax.
Mm-hmm.
I don't relax, so somebody forces me to relax with very strong hands.
You're talking to 2 people who are like, I celebrate my book launch by going to work. So
Right.
clearly this is a problem. But I do think there's a lot of this message, you finished a book, write the next book. Whether you're on contract or it's just the message you're getting, like, all right, especially early in your career, because you are working on building that backlist, and you are kind of waiting to get to the point where there's visibility and momentum. And, you know, I will say one thing I do is I don't write the day that I launch a book. I mean, I do go to my job, but I do try to like go out for a beer or a fancy cocktail, or have something I really, really, really like for dinner. So yes, I definitely don't write. Whatever like writing routine, which I'm not always in a routine, but you know, wherever I am in writing, I don't do it on the day of that launch. I kind of let that be a day to celebrate that book.
I find that I'm just too swamped with whatever social media, newsletter. For whatever reason, I either remember to do newsletters or I remember to do blog posts, and I don't remember to do both beforehand. Yes. I try to do as much of this stuff as possible, and you know, do some tweet scheduling to help myself out, especially during work hours, and to do some Facebook posts and stuff like that, just to get myself going, so that I have some momentum, so I don't open up my computer and suddenly I'm like, oh my god, I have all the things I have to do. But for whatever reason, I cannot manage to do both newsletters and blog posts at the same time. I think they tap into the same mental place in my brain, and I just am done by the time the day actually hits. So usually I'm doing one of those, but no, I rarely write on a launch day, and for good reason.
I have started, because I cannot remember to plan ahead with blog posts and newsletters for what I can plan teasers and I can plan excerpts, but I cannot plan day of, hey, my book is out, here are the links to save my life. So what I have started doing is I do one, and then I copy it and I paste it into the other, and I do not care that they are identical.
No, I was actually just going to say, just put a link to your blog in your newsletter. Like, that can be your entire news. That's what my newsletter is every week.
There are shortcuts. But yeah, planning ahead is huge with a book launch. If you have the ability and mental capacity to plan ahead with your newsletter, your blog posts, plan your social media posts, your teasers, your excerpts, whatever they are, do that, because you lose your mind just a little bit on the day of.
Yeah, and you're really helping yourself out, especially with the graphics. I find graphics take forever to build, because there's a lot of fiddly bits and things like that, and so you have to sit there and do teasers and pull excerpts, and for whatever reason, I'm not great at pulling quotes while I'm in the middle. In fact, Alexis's husband, the sexy editor, has actually read my stuff and gone through and pulled teaser quotes for me, because I'm so bad at remembering to do it while I'm editing. For whatever reason, it's just not a thing that is in the front of my brain. And so having all that stuff ready to go and to be able to like literally upload it on my phone, and I'm standing waiting on the subway platform being like, oh, right, I need to, and then, you know, do whatever it is that I need to do to get the word out, is really, really helpful. And I think that you're basically trying to buy yourself some time on the day, because it's never going to feel not overwhelming. And whether it's because you're sitting there clicking through your Amazon rankings or whatever, you're trying to minimize the amount of stuff that you have to like actively think about, and do a lot of this stuff kind of intuitively or on autopilot or whatever it is that you need to do. And I do think the more time that you can give yourself to plan a book launch, the better. It's really hard to sit on a book for a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever it is that you have decided on doing. It's really tough to do that when it's written. And it's really tough to do that when arcs are out and all that stuff. But the more time you can give yourself, usually the better, because there is something you're going to forget, and there's more that you feel like you can do marketing-wise, and there's more that you feel like you can do, you know, reaching out to reviewers and all of that. So I think that that's, you know, you're putting yourself in a better place. But it's hard. I know it's really, really hard sitting on your hands, and it's hard doing a pre-order because you know that you're going to have some time where you have got to have that book in, because otherwise your pre-order just goes up in flames. So.
This is the first time I've done pre-orders and actually given myself time to launch books, and it's been a very different and interesting experience, but I have enjoyed it, especially for Burn as part of my established brand. It's been a very exciting experience. D909, it did nothing. It was, as I have already discussed, silly book.
It's a debut, essentially, so I think, yeah.
But being able to, as reading through, I would just highlight quotes and then stick them into Canva in blank boxes. And then as I've gotten closer to launch, I've just gone through and I've looked through all my blank boxes and gone, ooh, I want to make a teaser for that quote, and then make a teaser. And so I've finally set myself up a system for creating all of that marketing stuff that leads up to launch day. And so as opposed to my old Wild West shoot from the hip, hey, I just published a book today, surprise, method that I used to do, this planning stuff is kind of fun too.
Gives you a running chance.
It does. And I think, you know, if we're talking about surviving a book launch, I think, you know, doing some of those things in advance and knowing that, you know, you've done everything kind of in your ability to promote the book, it's going to make you feel better about it. Because I think, you know, I mean, I definitely had that experience too, which the launch I was talking about earlier, where I was like, I sold 5 copies. I mean, I don't think I really did anything to try to sell more than 5 copies. But, you know, so you have that feeling of, wow, like maybe I should have sat on this, or I should have done some more things. And I think having a process around your launch, which is totally a different thing about like how, like a whole different conversation about how to launch a book. But I think having a process around it is going to help you survive it, because no matter what the numbers come out, you're going to know that you put work in and you know, did everything that you knew or were able to kind of within, you know, whatever you've set up as your constraints of time. You know, you did what you could to launch it. And so I think that can help you survive that actual launch, to be like, you know what, I did things to make this happen. I didn't just hit publish and then feel upset that no one bought it.
Something else that I should mention before I forget, and ironically it's about forgetting, write the things that you do down, and write down, and kind of like if you can take a step back a couple weeks after you're done with the launch and just have a moment where you say, okay, this worked, this didn't work, these are all. It's really helpful to have a running list that you can add to or delete from. It's really hard to create that list over and over and over again. And at some point, especially if you're launching a series and there are things that you want to be consistent about, it's really helpful to have that kind of infrastructure in place so that you can sit there and you can say, okay, this is a series. I want to make sure that I get this book to these reviewers that I was able to contact and was able to get, you know, reviews from, and all these things. Like, I want to keep the momentum going, and so I'm going to continue to, you know, oh, I used a Facebook party, so let's do another Facebook party, and it kind of just, it's almost like I don't know if you guys do this, but before you throw a party, you write down a list of like, okay, back timing, I need to have, this out of the oven at this time in order to get it on the table, so I need to start it at this time, and kind of just writing those things down. It's almost like giving yourself that roadmap or that cheat sheet before you launch into it again, and it can be really helpful. Because like the last time you should be planning anything is when you're super stressed, and you're super stressed when you're in the middle of a book launch or about to launch a book launch. So.
Right, because that's when you're going to forget things, when you're in the middle of it.
Or you're going to act emotionally, too. You don't want to do that.
Right, you're going to be like, this is not working. I am not putting out another post.
I'm going to spend $1,000 on Facebook ads.
Right. Ooh.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, planning's good.
Yeah, definitely. Having a nice checklist to go through.
Yeah, I think those are the basics to surviving a book launch. Planning, pampering, celebrating, not freaking out.
Not being too hard on yourself.
Having a support network.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think, not being too hard on yourself kind of goes back to that keeping track of what you're doing, what works, what doesn't work. So looking at this as, I'm early in my career, I'm building this, what can I learn from this launch that worked really well, what didn't work, where should I not be spending my time? So kind of trying to do a reframe on the things that maybe don't work really well as, what am I learning to make this really successful in the future? Like, what's going to make the next launch better and better and better? So,
I like that.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
So I think is that all the knowledge we have to impart about surviving?
I think so. I think launching is its own subject, and surviving was its own subject.
Right.
So.
Exactly. And again, I'm really glad we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but I think this is the side that maybe people don't talk a whole lot about, that, it can feel exciting, but also kind of like intimidating and just not I think until you go through the experience of launching a book, you don't realize the range of emotions. I think you watch them from the outside as a reader, maybe following your favorite authors, and you're like, that looks amazing. She got flowers from her agency and like everyone's congratulating her. I mean, you do. And then you experience it, and it is all of that. Your friends are all congratulating you, and you are holding this thing in your hands for the first time, or looking at it on an online store for the first time. And yet, there's all these other pieces of it. So, yeah, I think it's important to talk about kind of the expectations as you go into that. So I'm glad we did that.
Definitely.
Cool.
Just launch it. It'll get better.
Yeah, and I don't know what the magic number is on launches, but I keep telling myself it's not what I've done yet. So I just need to launch the next one.
Well, and if you have a goal of making each one better than the one before it, yay, that's good.
Definitely. All right. Do we want to do a quick, just go around and talk about what we're working on now and sign off for the night?
Sure.
We'll start with you, Julia, since you weren't here for introductions.
I'm Julia Kelly, by the way.
And what are you drinking tonight? It looks like a Brooklyn something.
I'm drinking a Goose Winter Ale.
Oh, okay.
So I am Julia Kelly. I write historical romance, and I have a historical romance that is up for pre-sale right now. It is called The Governess Was Wicked, and I'm very excited. I just turned in copy edits for that, so that's really exciting. I think it may also be 99 cents right now, which is a little cheaper. It's dropped from $2.99 temporarily, so pop over and see if you can snag it at a cheaper price. Other than that, I'm working my way through The Governess Was Wanton and The Governess Was Wild as well, which are all written, but they're in varying degrees of editing right now. I'm really excited about them. I'm really, really thrilled about this series, and loving how it's shaping up, and loving my editor who's putting up with me right now. So all of those will be coming out, and hopefully I'll have more details on them soon, as well as hopefully a cover for the three of them sometime soon, because it would be a lot of fun to share that with you guys. So, and then also just really quickly, there is a Valentine's Rewind blog hop that's happening, And I'm revisiting some characters that you guys met in 1 week in Hawaii. So the two main characters are having their second Valentine's Day together in the story that I'm writing right now, unless I decide to change it because it's partway done. So that details for that blog hopper on Tamsin Parker's website right now, and I'll have some information about that up as well as soon as I finish the story that I'm actually writing. So.
Life.
Exactly.
I'm also part of the Valentine Rewind blog hop, and I'm doing something slightly crazy, and I haven't written it yet, so it may change, which is why I don't really tell anybody what I'm doing, other than it's crazy. But you will like it. If you read my books, you will like it. You will be excited. So come by on Tuesday, a week from today, to my blog, which is also the same day that I'm launching Burn, the latest book in the T series, which is it's really freaking hot, people. It's really good. So you'll want that too. It's up for pre-order for 99 cents. It will not be 99 cents after the first couple days of release. So pre-order it now. You get it for 99 cents. Come by my blog to see the Valentine Rewind, which may or may not include many people. And also, D909, I want to sell more than 5 copies. People buy one.
And where can we find you online?
AlexisSandBooks.com and or AlexisSykes.com.
Excellent. And D909 is great. You should really go buy a copy. It's really, really amazing. I spent a lot of my winter break with it. So,
thank you, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no, it was great. I love getting lost in a book during those 2 weeks. That's how I reward myself for a year's worth of writing. Yes, so I am unfortunately not participating in that fabulous blog hop, even though I had a great idea for a story. So hopefully maybe I will write. I just didn't have time to squeeze it in right now. So I'm really, really excited to read everyone else's, and maybe sometime I will just randomly write this fun story that popped into my head for it. Maybe I'll put it out a month past Valentine's Day when I have more time. St. Patrick's Day.
Spring Fling.
Spring Fling, yes. Yes, I think that's it. I'm working on a work in progress right now, still really early on, so I don't have a whole lot to report on that. It's Groundhog Day. So I have my debut novel, Never Ending Beginnings, that came out in paperback last year, is very loosely, the structure of it is a lot like the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. So I am doing a giveaway on my Facebook page, which, you know, just in being honest with launches, honestly, I think last time I checked, 1 person had entered, so like the odds are really awesome if you're watching this live and you want to go over to my Facebook page and leave a comment about whether you think winter is going to continue for 6 months or not. Right now, there's a like 50% chance you might win my book. But I can be found at marychrisescobar.com, and thank you for spending some time with us tonight or listening to this on the podcast, and good luck with all your launches, and don't forget to celebrate that you wrote a book and a lot of people haven't written a book and shared it with the world. So way to go, and cheers.
Cheers.
Good night.